I work the graveyard shift at a factory on the outskirts of town. It's a quiet place, mostly, except for the hum of the machines. The building, a hulking mass of steel and concrete, stands alone in the darkness, surrounded by nothing but empty fields and the distant glow of the city lights. It's an eerie sight if you're not used to it, but for me, it's just another night at the office. My routine is pretty straightforward. I clock in at 11, make my rounds through the factory floor, ensuring all the machines are running smoothly. The hum of the machinery is a constant companion, a monotonous drone that fills the air and drowns out the silence of the night. Metal clinks and clanks, gears grind and whir, and the conveyor belts churn out products in a never-ending cycle. I've grown so accustomed to this symphony of sounds that it's become my lullaby, lulling me into a sense of security amidst the solitude. The factory is a labyrinth of corridors and production lines, a maze of machinery and metal. It's easy to lose oneself in the echo of footsteps against the concrete floor, the flickering lights casting long shadows that dance and sway with every step. The isolation can be heavy, the silence oppressive, but I've learned to embrace it, the solitude, the quiet, the predictability of it all. But you see, there's a rhythm to the night shift, a certain cadence that you get used to. The hum of the machines, the echo of your footsteps, the flicker of the lights. It's like a dance, a mechanical ballet that you become a part of. It's comforting in a way, knowing what to expect, knowing what comes next. On one particular night, something was different. The usual hum of the machines was broken by a strange sound. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable above the drone of the machinery, but it was there. An unfamiliar note in the familiar symphony of the factory. And that's when I knew something was about to disrupt the rhythm of my night. I'd never heard anything like it before. It was a low, raspy whisper, barely audible over the noise of the machines. It was like someone was trying to tell me something, but their words were muffled and distorted. I tried to ignore it, I really did. But the more I tried, the louder it got. It was like the whisper was demanding to be heard. I stopped what I was doing and tried to locate the source of the noise. I walked around the factory, trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. But no matter where I went, the whisper followed. It was always the same volume, the same intensity. It was like it was inside my head, echoing around my skull. I checked the machines, thinking maybe one of them was malfunctioning, but they were all running smoothly, just as they always did. I even checked the radio, thinking maybe I'd left it on and it was picking up some interference. But the radio was off, silent as a grave. The whisper grew louder, more insistent. It was like it was trying to drown out everything else, to force me to listen. I could hear it over the hum of the machines, over the sound of my own heartbeat. It was all I could hear, this constant, raspy whisper. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't right, this wasn't normal. I was alone in the factory, alone with this strange, unexplainable noise. I didn't know what it was or where it was coming from, but I knew it wasn't good. I could feel it in my bones, this sense of dread, of impending doom. Then, as suddenly as they had started, the noises stopped, but the silence that followed was even more unnerving. It was like the calm before a storm, the quiet before the chaos. I knew something was coming, something big, and whatever it was, I knew it wouldn't be good. In the silence, I noticed something else. Shadows were moving in the corners of my vision, but when I turned to look, there was nothing there. The night was stretching on, and the solitude of the warehouse was getting to me. I had always been comfortable with my own company, but this was different. It was as if the darkness was becoming thicker, more physical, like it was closing in on me. And then I saw them, the shadows. They were subtle at first, darting movements that you could almost convince yourself were just tricks of the light. But then they became bolder, lingering at the edge of my vision, like they were watching me. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was just the fatigue setting in. Working the night shift does that to you. Your mind starts to play tricks on you. You see things that aren't there, hear things that don't exist. But these shadows, they were different. They were more tangible, more real. They seemed to have a presence, a weight to them, like they were more than just absence of light, but entities in their own right. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was like the shadows themselves had eyes and they were fixed on me. It was an unnerving sensation, one that made my skin crawl and my heart race. There in the dim light of the factory was a figure. It was vague and indistinct, but it was definitely there. It stood at the far end of the assembly line, just a silhouette against the faint glow of the emergency exit sign. It was tall and thin like a man, but there was something off about it, something that made my skin crawl. The figure seemed to be watching me, its stillness unnerving amidst the constant hum of machinery. I could feel its gaze even though I couldn't see its eyes. It was an oppressive weight, chilling me to the bone. I tried to shake off the fear, telling myself that it was just a trick of the light, a shadow cast by some forgotten piece of equipment. But the figure didn't move, didn't waver. It just stood there, watching. Gathering my courage, I decided to approach it. The factory floor was littered with obstacles. Discarded tools, half-finished products, piles of raw materials. Each step was a battle, the fear threatening to freeze me in place. But I pressed on, determined to confront this figure, this silent watcher in the shadows. But as I got closer, the figure began to fade. It was like watching a drawing being erased, the lines growing fainter and fainter until there was nothing left. I reached the spot where the figure had been, but there was nothing there, just the cold, hard concrete floor. It was then that I realized that something unnatural was happening in the factory. This wasn't just a late-night shift, playing tricks on my mind. This was something else, something beyond the realm of the natural. I was terrified, but I knew I had to find out what was happening. I had to uncover the truth behind the figure, to confront whatever horror was lurking in the shadows of the factory. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. The figure had disappeared, but the fear it had instilled in me remained. I was terrified, but I knew I had to find out what was happening. I searched the factory but found nothing, but I could feel it. The fear, the dread. It was like something was watching me. It was as if the very walls of the factory were alive, breathing with an unseen menace. The machines, once my companions in the quiet night, now seemed like sleeping monsters, ready to awaken at the slightest provocation.